Now we are returning to what we've been learning for the last 2 days, and that is Abraham and Yitzchak, Avram and Yitzchak, and the marriage of Yitzchak to Rivka by means of a shliach. That Abraham wanted to continue the Jewish people. He wanted to continue the Jewish people. And so he knew that he had to find a bride for his son Yitzchak, right? This is after the Akedah, like 3 years after the Akedah. After Abraham took Yitzchak to sacrifice him, as now God said, according to some opinions, Yitzchak was 3 years in heaven. Soul was in 3 years in heaven. Well, whatever it is, now Abraham says, okay, now we have to continue Judaism. And what is Judaism? That Abraham was a normal person like everybody else, but he realized that there's God, and he realized that God cares about this physical world infinitely, and every detail of the physical world is important. Abraham realized that, and every moment of your life should be devoted to this, making God revealed in this world. How? By acting and reacting to the world the way God wants you to. And Abraham realized this. But nobody else did. Nobody else did, except for his son, his wife also, but his son Yitzchak. And so he said, okay, the world depends on this message. That's why Adam was created, the first man. That's why Adam was created, only to bring this message. That's the how do you say, the theme of this world is that God created a world and he put man in it to improve the world. That's the whole reason the world is here. And Adam realized this, but he didn't do it. It was too much for him. He couldn't do it. 2,000 years later comes along Abraham, the first person to really get the point. And Abraham said, good, I did it, but it's I just began the process. I have to have my son. There's going to have to be three. There's going to be 3 stages to preparing the world for this. And eventually that's what the Torah is. The Torah is, but first you have to have Abraham. He started preparing the world for the Torah. So Abraham said, good, now I gave birth to a son, Yitzchak. That was pretty miraculous. Gave birth to my son. I was 100 years old, gave birth to a son. And now Yitzchak, he is the continuation of the Jewish people. Yitzchak, I got to find him a wife. So he said, this is very important because the child that Yitzchak is going to have, he is going to be the Jewish people. Yisrael becomes Yisrael. We're all Bnei Yisrael, all the sons of. So Abraham, you think he would go on his own? Abraham would go, such an important thing. You can't trust anybody else to do it. Abraham should go on his own. I mean, true, he was 140 years old, but when he was 137, he climbed up the mountain. He did all this walk for 3 days. So, I mean, I don't think he was dead. It doesn't say that he got sick or something in that time. But Abraham said, I'm not going to do it on my own. I'm going to do it by means of an emissary. Who was the emissary? Eliezer. In this case, Eliezer wasn't even Jewish. Eliezer was not Jewish. Abraham did not convert Eliezer to be a Jew. He didn't convert anybody to be a Jew. He just convinced people to do the 7 Noahide commandments, and he had a lot of people that he had an effect on, but there weren't any Jews. Abraham was the only one. And Abraham and Yitzchak, and Abraham's wife. Even Yishmael was Abraham's son. He wasn't a Jew. Yitzchak was. So Yitzchak has to get married. So he gets married to who? To Rivka. But how did he find Rivka? He sent this Eliezer. Eliezer was an emissary. And so the Rebbe said, I mean, this whole business is so tremendously important. Why couldn't Abraham do it himself? Why did he have to do it by means of an emissary? So the Rebbe said, first of all, let me explain to you how important Yitzchak is. It says that when Abraham sent Eliezer to find a bride for Yitzchak, that he gave a document that said, everything I own belongs to Yitzchak. And he put it in the hands of Eliezer, his servant. Everything I own. And it says that Abraham was a very rich person. He became very rich. He trusted in God, and God made him tremendously rich. And everything he had, he gave to. So the Rebbe said, well, why did he give everything? You don't have to give everything. Even more, you're not supposed to give everything. You're not supposed to give all of your possessions away. You become poor. We got enough poor people in the world, right? You don't have to be one of them or to compete with them. Abraham should have distributed whatever money he had to the poor and leave something for himself, leave something. No. Abraham gave everything he had to Yitzchak. Says, why? What's so important? Says, because spiritually, Abraham and Yitzchak were really one person. They were one continuum. Said, good, spiritually, but there's laws. Spiritual is wonderful. You can explain almost anything spiritually, right? You can explain all the sins spiritually. There's a book by the Tzemach Tzedek, Derech Mitzvotecha, and he explains that all of the sexual sins, having relations with your mother, having relations with a man, all in their source spiritually. These are, chachma, with bina, with malchus, with this, all these different levels of this. You can explain, you can destroy the whole world with spiritual explanations, right? Spiritual explanations. We got to figure out how this works out. Actually, you're not supposed to give away all your money. How did Abraham do it? And so it says, 1 second, is that where we got up to? One minute. I think this is what we got up to. Let me take a short delay over here. 1 minute. Okay. Let's first of all start explaining it in an internal way. Let me have a minute, please. Give me 1 minute. 1 minute here. 1 minute. Pause this. Okay. Let's explain this, therefore, the importance of Avram giving everything to Yitzchak. Let's explain this, first of all, in a spiritual way. But Lakuti Torah, in the end, Parshat Bracha, the Alter Rebbe explains that the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, is inyan hachi klali b'Torah. It is the most general, and if you want to call it foundational idea in the Torah. And also b'kol seder ishtalshlut, and also in all of creation. Nothing more important, nothing more basic and essential to the Torah and to reality than the marriage between Yitzchak and Rivka. Right? Not the whole rest, not the 10 Commandments, and not this. These are all wonderful. Being in Egypt, these are all only built on the foundation of this marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka. Not only that, the whole entire creation of the world, all the worlds, all the spiritual worlds with all the angels, it's all built on this foundation of the marriage of Yitzchak to Rivka. In addition, this Meshakef et Klolot Avodat Adam. This also is sums up the whole idea of the service of man. Again, what is the Bible coming and telling us? The purpose of the Bible, the whole story of the Bible, what? This world is very important to God. Man is central to this importance. God very, very much cares about this world. It's not just telling us, for our purposes, how the world got here, right? Because we're here, how the world got, but to God, it doesn't make any difference. God just does a lot of things. One of the things, he just happened to create the world. No, that's not the purpose of the Torah. The purpose of the Torah is not for us, so to speak. It's for God. God wanted to, you could almost say he needed to, but that's not, in a way, it is proper because this world gives God pleasure. Without this world, God is lacking pleasure. This world, only this world. If there's people on Mars or there's planet Zork or something, it could be that there are, but they don't give God pleasure. The Torah was given here, only here on this physical planet, on Mount Sinai, for the whole entire universe with all the nebulae and everything like that. And God told us in the Torah that he personally chose this physical world, this physical place, one physical group of people called the Jews, and he took them out of a specific place called Egypt, and he gave them the Torah because all of these things are infinite. They're infinitely more real than all of the celestial levels and nebulae and whatever it is, right, that there are. And the angels, just infinitely, this physical world, infinitely more important. And especially the center of the whole business is man. And what decisions we make in life and how we activate those decisions, if we carry out those decisions, if we decide to do things what God wants or the way we want. What does God want? What he said on Mount Sinai. What does we want? Everything else. Everything else. So how do we accomplish our whole purpose in this world? By doing according to what it says in the Torah. Of course, the Torah, what did God do? He gave the world to be fixed up. The Torah also has to be fixed up. The Torah has to be explained properly. And that's why we have the great rabbis. Not everybody can be a rabbi. There's very distinct criteria for being a rabbi. For being a rabbi, like in the Talmud, very exact criteria of what to be a rabbi. And then all the rabbis also had sometimes disagreeing explanations. All of these explanations are all correct. But the point is to do what the Torah says. That is the whole purpose of the entire creation. Okay, when you do what the Torah says, what happens? You make a marriage. You make a wedding. You're unifying something potential and bringing it into something actual. In other words, it's saying Yehud Ma and Ban. Ma and Ban. Man is a numerical value of one way of spelling God's name, filling up the letters of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, filling it up to make 45. That's Ma. And there's another way of filling up the letters, which filling up the letters making from a Hey instead of Hey. What if to fill up the letters of this Yud, Hey, and Vav and Hey of God's name, that it comes out to the numerical value of 52. Now, this corresponds to various spiritual aspects of godliness and how God relates to the world. Like I said, the world is very important to God. That's Ma is one. That is represented by Yitzchak coming from above to below. And Ban is the world from Rivka, that's from below to above. Hainu Yichud Shel Neshama, then the uniting of the soul, which is Ma with the body, Ban, of each and every Jew. Until Shlemut Yichud, the total completion of unity of Nisuin, the marriage of the Jewish people, that we become like the level of Ban, the physical world, to God, that's the aspect of Ma. Yisrael and Kodesh Baruch Hu Kul Echad, that the Jewish people and God are one. That's the idea of the Holy Temple. You would go to the Holy Temple and you would see how important this physical world is to God. Like it's going to be in the future redemption. After we began this, that was the engagement, Irusin. That was when God gave the Torah. That was, so to speak, the engagement party between us and God. That was when God gave the Torah. The Jewish people were not able to unify totally to consume the wedding. They were not able to finish the marriage, to be unified with God. That's going to happen only when the Moshiach comes. Then the Jewish people will be ready to receive the oneness of God. The whole world will be ready. They'll make the whole world ready. That's the idea of Moshiach. Okay. And so here we have the whole idea of Judaism as the world, that the world, the way it is, has to be united with God. The world as it is, that's the level of Ban. That's like Rivka. That's like the Jewish people. And Ma is God. That's the last aspect of Ma. That in this. And that's the marriage of Yitzchak. In this case, Yitzchak is a metaphor for God. And Rivka is the metaphor for the world or for the Jewish people. And this is expressed the whole idea of the service of man in this world, doing the Torah and the commandments in this world, in this physical world, Gashmi. Like we started to learn in the Torah, Likuti Torah, in Torah Or, that the even though that the Torah and the commandments are garments for the soul to get pleasure in heaven after you die, But the real fact of the matter is that the Torah and the commandments are even higher than any revelation you can have in heaven. That's the idea of Yichud Ma'uban. That's the idea of the raising of the dead. There's not going to be any more heaven. No more heaven. Heaven is a product of the sin of Adam. If there wouldn't have been a sin of Adam, then the world would be unified, the physical world would be unified with God. Ma'un Ban. There wouldn't have to be any world to come. This world would be the highest. Achiru Shel Matan Torah, that's the whole novelty of the giving of the Torah. The whole novelty of the giving of the Torah is expressed in this fact. Sha'az then, Nidbatla Gezerah was negated. God's decree when he created the world, Beina Elyonim v'Tachtonim, the upper worlds and the lower worlds. Adam, the first man, was supposed to unite them. He was supposed to show how important this physical world is to God in every detail of this physical world. He was supposed to. But instead, he got sidetracked, Adam, and he started thinking about himself. And this had to wait for 2,000 years until came Abraham, and Abraham started to realize that the whole purpose of the world is to connect the creator, the upper worlds, to the creation, to show how important this world is, how godly this world is potentially, how good this world is, to connect Ruchni the Gashmir, to connect spiritual and physical, Ma and Ban, Yitzchak and Rivka. That sums up the whole Torah, that sums up the whole creation, that sums up all the Jewish people, why we're here, what we're here for, why God created us, why God is creating us. Then there's given the power, in Mount Sinai was given the power, the Chaber, to unite, to unite, and to unify the spiritual, physical with the spiritual. Shaguf Gashmi, that the physical body, Hadavar Gashmi, and physical things, Yasu Kodesh, should become holy. Ad Lechefza Kedusha, until they become, not just become holy, but they become a vessel of holiness. Shlemut Yichud, the complete, this is the complete unity, the ultimate unity of Ma and Ban. When was this going to be? When God is going to be revealed in the world, where we'll see how miraculous, what a big miracle every detail of this world is, what a gift every detail of this world is, time, place, consciousness, how it's all just incredible miracles every moment. And the fact that we can improve it is even a bigger miracle. That's the idea of Moshiach. Moshiach is there to activate all the Jews, so that the Jews will do the commandments, and the commandments will unify God with the world and the world with God. That's the whole idea of the future redemption that we're headed for. Then it'll be Nekeva and the Sovet Gever. It says then Rivka will be higher than Yitzchak. We'll talk about that. The physical world will be higher than the spiritual worlds. We'll talk about that in chapter, in the 10th paragraph. But then, and this, before the Lakuti Torah is explained in Lakuti Torah, Madua, why does the Torah go to such great length, Maricha, takes such great length, Odot Shlichot, regarding this, the Shlichot, this, they say, the mission of Eliezer. Why does the Torah invest so much time in this mission of Eliezer? Ad Sheparsha Shel Eliezer is doubled the Torah. It's repeated over and over again, right? This whole story about Abraham sending Eliezer, so it says that Abraham sends Eliezer, and then Eliezer says to himself, you know, if a woman comes out and she says she wants to water the camels, and she gives also me to water, then I know that this is the woman. And then afterwards, it happened, and the woman came out, and she did what it is. And then afterwards, he went to her father's house, and he repeats the story over. He repeats the whole story over again. Now, the Torah is not a storybook. I mean, it certainly is a storybook. The story is, but it's much, much more than a storybook. And it's a history book also, but it's much, much more than a history book. Right? The Torah is God's will and wisdom, every letter. And this whole entire tractates of Talmud, hundreds of laws are learned from just one letter or from one word of the Torah. because the Torah was written in tremendous, how do you say, precision and economically. Exactly what God wanted to write, he wrote. And sometimes God wanted that there should be hundreds of laws contained in just one word. That's the idea of the rabbis of the Talmud. They knew how to bring it out. Right? The commandment of tefillin, just take an example. It doesn't say the word tefillin anywhere. It's so important. It just says it has to be a sign and a totafot, whatever it means, and the shape of tefillin and how many letters there are and what the shape of the letters. It's all contained in just one word. The Torah. So one word is so important. Here we have hundreds of words just telling this story, which seems to have no the practical application to us about how Abraham sent Eliezer and what Eliezer said to himself, and then he repeated it again, and then he repeated the story out again verbally. He told everybody what happened, and it happened, and he saw it happen, and he was happy that it happened. He looked at it happen, and then he told about how it happened, and went over and over and over the Torah. Seems to be a tremendous waste. Says the reason is in Likutei Torah, in this book of Chabad, Likutei Torah. So he asked the same question: why is it that the Torah takes such great length about Eliezer that it's redoubled in the Torah? Shekain zeh ya inyan shlichus, because this idea of sending Eliezer was levarer, in order to make clear, clarify, and to reveal this unity of Yitzchak and Rivka. And that's the whole topic of reality, and that's the whole topic of the Torah. This brings to Yichud Mamash, a true unification of marrying God with the world and marrying the world with God. And this is very, very important. Upapasha, simply speaking, Rivka was found in a place called Padan Aram. This is outside of Israel. And she was there by Betuel Arami, Betuel the clever one, the Lavan Arami, and also Lavan the clever one. These were all relatives of Abraham. Says, but nevertheless, she was found among all these evil people, all these criminals, Betuel and Lavan. These people were con men. They were awful. And there was Rivka. She was like a Kashoshana bein achuchim. It was like a rose among the thorns. And Rivka, that's this aspect of Ban. We said 52. That's the representing the whole world, representing also the Jewish people, everything that receives. Eliezer, the whole mission of Eliezer was expressed in this, that he should take her out from there, v'yavi ota, and bring her, Rivka, to be the bride of Yitzchak. And Yitzchak represented true purity, ola tamima, bechinat ma. That's the aspect of ma. Or both in a way of hayu lebasar echad, that they should be for one flesh. Ma uban. She even knew by it B'Yisrael that they should build a house in Israel, but olam hazeh, in this physical world. Kasher atachlit hu, that the ultimate purpose is the holid, to give birth to toldot. That's next week's Torah portion. Toldot, offspring, kapshutam, that they should have children. It ended up that their whole marriage was only to have two sons, Yaakov and Esav, and Yaakov was the main one. But we'll see that Esav is also important. We'll see. Nevertheless, the whole purpose of them was to get married so that they would have children. But Gam also told Otem shel tzaddikim maisim tovim, says the offspring of tzaddikim are good deeds. Shemehem, that from them, boim called Ben Israel, all the Jewish people come to the end of all generations. According to this, so therefore, Judaism depended on this marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, and the world depends on Jews. So according to this, it's understood that the whole mission of Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, Hashlichot Rishona, this is the first shlichot, this is the first emissary that was written in the Torah. Natana, this gives the power that we can do the service of unifying Ma and Ban Bavodat Hashem. We are also emissaries, and our mission in the world is to do the same thing that Eliezer did. The seemingly impossible task to unify God with the world. And this began actively in Mount Sinai when God physically revealed himself in the world. What that means, no one has any idea. That's why, but it happened. Umisham, from the giving of the Torah, was drawn down to all of the times and all the places, ad until Shleimut Bazeh, the completion of this will be in the future complete redemption. The Yesh Lomar, we can say, Shashlichot HaKlalit, that the whole general mission, the whole general purpose of Eliezer is also hinted at in just these words. 3 words. Eved Avraham Anochi. I am a servant of Abraham. Oh, this is really powerful. The whole essence of what a Jew is to be like Eliezer, an emissary. Emissary of who? Of Abraham. Eved Avraham Anochi. I am a servant of Abraham. Yadu, it's known that Abraham, he was a Jew, first Jew, and he began the preparation of the giving of the Torah. V'zeh remez, that's what is hinted at Eved Avraham Anochi, that I am a servant of Abraham. Shebiyoto Eved Avraham Anochi, that because he was a servant of Abraham, Yesh Eliezer, therefore Abraham gave power to Eliezer. He's got the power. Lif'ol at Yichud Ma'oban. He could do what Abraham could do. He was a shliach. It wasn't Jewish. Didn't make any difference. Abraham made him an emissary. He, with that power that Abraham made him an emissary, he became like Abraham. He had the power to unify Ma and Ban. The unification of Yitzchak and Rivka. Gam also the Ikar Kachana Tavdun et Elokim alahar azeh, that the Jewish people, they would all become servants of God at Mount Sinai. When Moses was by the burning bush was on Mount Sinai. That's where the burning bush was, even though it was like 400 years before the Torah was given. I mean, the burning bush, that was on Mount Sinai. So God said to Moses, one of the signs that you're going to get out of Egypt, right? God said, I'm going to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. So Moses said, okay, whatever you say, God. And God said, I saw you're not, one of the signs you're going to get out of Egypt is you're going to serve me on this mountain. One of the meanings is that in the merit of receiving the Torah, I'm going to take you out of Egypt. Even if though you look at the Jewish people and they didn't even want to leave Egypt, but because they received the Torah, as you believe me, I see things in the Jewish people you don't see, and I'm going to, on the merit that you're going to serve me, it says serve me. Ta'avdun, you will serve God on this mountain. And Mount Sinai, the Jewish people became servants of God. That was the revelation of God's essence. Anochi was revealed in Matan Torah. So that's the whole idea why it is so important, this unity of Yitzchak and Rivka, and why Abraham gave everything he had to Yitzchak, because everything, his whole being, was only to bring this unity into the world. That's the whole thing of Abraham. To prepare for the giving of the Torah, which the Torah was revealing the essence of God in this physical world, the whole world. Okay, so that's why Abraham gave everything to Yitzchak. Nevertheless, we still have to explain something, according to this, that this whole tremendous detail and length that the Torah takes, goes to such great length, and because the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka show on such an important thing, but the main unity, but the main lengthening of the story should be the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka. If we say that the most important thing was the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, and that's the reason why the story is so long and takes up so many words in the Torah, because of the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka. But if we look at the Torah, we'll see that not that much space is given to the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka. Most of it is given to what happened to Eliezer, how Eliezer left the house and how he went to a place and he couldn't find Rivka, and he stopped with his camels and he prayed to God and he said, please send me a sign, and he made up what the sign is. And then afterwards, the sign came to be. And then afterwards, he saw it came to be. And then afterwards, he was taken to Rivka's house. And Yitzchak is not in the picture yet. It's just talking about Eliezer. What happened to Eliezer, what Eliezer thought, what he said, what the results was. That's the main part. And as far as Yitzchak meeting up with Rivka, there's just a couple words. The Torah spends most of its time talking about Eliezer. And we just finished saying that no, the reason that Abraham gave everything to Yitzchak was because Yitzchak and Rivka were important. The marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, Ma and Ban, the world with God, Rivka and Yitzchak, Yitzchak and Rivka, Rivka and Yitzchak. The whole thing is Yitzchak and Rivka. And we see that the Torah doesn't talk as much about Yitzchak and Rivka as it does about Eliezer. And even though it doesn't talk about it shouldn't talk so much about what Eliezer did and how Eliezer did, and this is only a preparation for this marriage. Why does the Torah take so much time and space about this mission of Eliezer and what Eliezer did and what Abraham said to Eliezer and how Abraham he succeeded and he almost didn't succeed? Why is so much time with Eliezer? Ketzad Abraham, how Abraham gave him an oath and he swore that he should do it, and how he went and he did it. Why so much time with Eliezer? So from this, if the Torah really devotes so much space and time and so many words to Eliezer, it must be understood that this mission of Eliezer, Nogat le'etzem inyan, must be relevant to the essence of this whole idea of Ma and Ban. The main thing is not only the uniting of God and the world, of Yitzchak and Rivka, of the spiritual and the physical. Not only that. Somehow or other, an essential thing is Eliezer, the shliach, the emissary. Why? We'll see. Yeshlom, we can say, one of the explanations is, according to this, we can understand why Eliezer was he was a shliach. He wasn't just a matchmaker. Why Shekain B'chdei, in order that he could do and accomplish the unification of Ma and Ban, of God and the world, the spiritual and the physical. Tzorech liot, there has to be Gam Eitzel Adam. It has to be something like this in the person that brings it about. That he should be something on his own, that's Ban, like the world. And that existence, selfish, an ego, a separate ego, that's Ban, like the physical world, we said. It should be a separate, seemingly separate entity, but it should be unified with the one who is sending him, Ma, God. That's the idea of an emissary. Now the Rebbe is going to come and explain to us what it means you want to be his emissary. And he's going to say like this, just in a short way, that you have to be yourself. You have to be yourself. You have to make the decisions. You have to think things out. You have to be original. But simultaneously, you have to totally be devoted to the one who's sending you. Totally. No thought is of your own. You're totally not original. Everything you do is only what the person who's sending you wants you to do. How can there be these two opposites? They're totally opposites. That's the joke. That's it. That's the whole point. Uniting two opposites. A shliach, a person who's really an emissary. And of course, the Rebbe is speaking to his shluchim, his emissaries. And the Rebbe himself, of course, he's only also a shliach. He's just an emissary of the creator of the universe. and he's going to make his emissaries also to the creator of the universe to make this unity. But first of all, they are emissaries. A shliach has two opposites. On one hand, he has to be a separate entity on his own, with his own personality and his own intellect and his own. He has to be separate entity from the one who is sending him. Bar dat b'fnei atzmo. He has to have his own opinions and his own. And secondly, he has to be batal, totally surrendered to the one who's sending him. And to understand that he's shliach shalo, that he is only an emissary of someone else. He's not an independent entity. Below l'shanot meratzon da'at ha'mashalech, and he can never deviate from his mission when he's been sent for. If he does deviate from the purpose for which he was sent, he's not a shliach anymore. Until he knows that the one who was sending him appointed him to be his emissary. Says that emissary of a person is like him until he really becomes like him 100%. That's the whole idea of the yichud ma'an ban. A soul of a Jew has to be united with God. The soul which I have been given is purely united with God. Until the soul is actually a chelik elokam mimal mamash, it is a portion from God, really. That makes him shliach. But what is his job? A shlichat shel Yehudi. That God is the one who's sending us. God sends us below into this physical world, which is ban. Like it says, Ata barata, God, you created the world, you formed the world, you made the world. The soul, I'm sorry. The soul comes into the world, says you formed it, you made it, you blew it into me. Why was the soul put into the world? It was that shlichut, it was sent into the world, is in order to unify the one who sent him, ma, with ban, to the place where he was being sent to unify the neshama with the body, the physical, the body, and the soul and the body should be unified. Gam kafish and neshama, that even as the soul is found in the body, it does not forget that it is only a shliach. It has only been sent. Shemitzad atzmo, that in itself, it is a separate entity in itself, and it has its own personality and its own, the godly soul. That's the first thing of a shliach. You have to be a person, but you should ya'ir bo or neshama, but the light of the soul should be shining into it. Vagufia, and the body should be surrendered to the soul. Osim navsham ikar, you have to make your soul the main thing, and your body has to be a secondary thing. The body is the vessel. Ad shaguf, until the body and the soul become unified. Al yedei avoda, by means of his service, doing Torah and the commandments. Shem davka b'devarim gashmi, the Torah and the commandments are only in physical things, to draw down and to reveal the light of godliness into this physical world. Kach shabakol inyan Yehudi oseh, and everything that a Jew does, because our soul is an emissary of God, and it's put into this world to do its job, to make a unification, to make a marriage. Until the degree that everything that a Jew does, it should be recognized in his physical things that he does, it's a soul and a body, and that he's an emissary of God, and he's unified with God. Shlucha shalom kamoto, that the soul becomes clearly a representative of God. It's not just here to enliven the body. And therefore, Eliezer, he was a shliach in order to bring about what Yitzchak, the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka. Therefore, Eliezer, he was totally, it's a novelty that Abraham could make a person that contained in him a unification of God and the world. Person, Yitzchak. I'm sorry, Eliezer. Eliezer was a person, a human being, After the giving of the Torah, you can't really make a non-Jew to be an emissary for you in things like this in marriage. But before giving the Torah, you could. And not only that, Eliezer didn't really bring about the marriage. He just went and found a proper bride. That was his thing. But in order to do this, that bride that he found was Rivka. She represents the whole world. And the one who sent him was Abraham, who represents God. And Eliezer had to have inside of him this unification of opposites. Inside of him, he had to be totally surrendered to Abraham, Eved Avram Anochi. But on the other hand, he had to be a totally separate person. That's why Abraham sent him, to be someone separate, to be not Abraham. Abraham didn't go himself. He sent someone separate from him. So therefore, it has to be that the shliach, the emissary, has to have also in himself the unification of Ma and Ban, of Yitzchak and Rivka, of God and the world. Shemetziut Shalo, that his being has to be like the person who sent him, like we said before, but simultaneously has to be separate. According to this, now we can understand why Abraham gave everything that he had to do this job to give to Eliezer. Shekain Yichud Shamar Ban, because the whole idea of unifying Ma and Ban, God and the world, Yitzchak and Rivka, the whole idea that it depends, this is what it'll only be revealed in the goal of Judaism, which is the Geula Mitit V'Shlema, total redemption, why this encompasses everything of all the creation and all of the Torah and the commandments. Eliezer was carrying out the most important thing in the world, the whole purpose that Abraham was even here. So there's nothing external to this. It encompasses all being. That's the reason everything is being created. And therefore, Abraham gave beforehand everything he had to Eliezer. And especially, he gave him the power to accomplish this unification of Ma and Ban. Like it's revealed, will be revealed in the giving of the Torah. And all of this came from Abraham and was transferred totally into Eliezer. And Eliezer then had the power to transfer this power into Yitzchak and Rivka. So Eliezer is very, very central to the whole creation of the world. Eliezer, the whole idea that there could be such a thing as an emissary to do a job, and that emissary includes inside of himself the whole goal inside of himself, that there could be such a thing. This is a big, huge novelty, that Abraham didn't have to do it himself, that he could actually embody his accomplishments into somebody else to fix up the world. And that the Rebbe is telling us, we're like Eliezer, we're being empowered to do the same thing, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.